Everyone, thank you for joining us today. Dear MP Agius Saliba, dear colleagues, to discuss today the important topic of access to employment for autistic people and employability. Autism-Europe celebrated its 40th anniversary last year, and on this occasion we carried out a survey to ask about the priorities of the autistic community. And it was very telling that the first issue was access to employment. And we all know that across Europe, there's a very high level of unemployment for autistic people. It is extremely disproportionate compared to other groups. And so that is despite the fact that access to employment is a right enshrined in the UNCRPD in the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. In recent months, Autism-Europe was delighted to see the adoption of the European resolution on harmonizing the rights of autistic people in Europe. And I would like to thank you, MP Agius Saliba, for your support. And we know you've been very active, notably to promote the issue of the right to employment. And this important resolution really highlight the importance of promoting positive action and positive programs to ensure further access to employment for autistic people, notably, for example, quotas and positive action. And indeed, developing employability and access to employment for autistic people requires a multi-pronged approach. It entails to develop access to vocational training, to understand the needs of autistic people when it comes to accessibility and reasonable accommodation in relation to the workplace, and to ensure adequate recognition of the skills and the rights of autistic people. And it is all of these topics are precisely addressed by the two projects we will discover today. We will be discussing about the results of autism-friendly spaces, the employability twist, and Talenti Latenti. So first, AFS Employability really aims at developing an autism-friendly environment in the workplace for autistic people, and we will share our recommendation to do so. And we will also share success stories from the projects and how people have managed to access the labor market with the right support. And then Talenti Latenti will focus on the importance of validating skills and competencies of neurodivergent people. We will see how enhancing skill validation processes can support access to employment. So I will now give the floor to our host. Thank you.
First of all, thanks for being here. Thanks to Autism-Europe for raising this very important point, linking autism with working opportunities and employability, as Aurélie has rightly pointed out. During the many discussions that I have in my constituency in Malta with parents, with persons with disability, I totally concur with what you are saying and with the results from your study, that one of the biggest headache, not only of persons on the autism spectrum, but also of their parents, is the employability, because if autistic people are not fully employed, ultimately they can never be fully integrated within our communities, within our societies. And therefore, we have to pass from good texts that we have with the UNCRPD, with the many resolutions that we have approved already here in the European Parliament. Aurélie has mentioned also the latest resolution that we have approved in the plenary of the European Parliament, a resolution emanating from the Committee of Petitions, which is the only committee in the European Parliament whereby our citizens and also persons with disabilities, apart from NGOs, can write directly to the European Parliament with their concerns, with their problems, and for us to take direct action. And ultimately, although we have very good texts when it comes to the UNCRPD Convention, when it comes to the implementation, when it comes to programs which are not tailor-made only to fill up quotas, because ultimately quotas are there, quotas legally are already being implemented and enforced in a number of member states, but we don't want half-baked solutions, half-baked initiatives in our member states just to be able to get the numbers, and ultimately we end up in a situation which we are seeing not only in my member state but in a number of member states, whereby we have good programs whereby persons with disability, autistic youths and persons are employed on a temporary basis. We reach the numbers, our targets, but then when the scheme runs out, ultimately we end up in a situation whereby it's a very big headache, and I am working on a number of cases when it comes to trying to find the right environment. And here I want to link the issue of the environment, and I would also like to thank Prisms Malta also for, because I am witnessing this on a first-hand basis in Malta. When you implement and work on the right environment for persons on the autistic spectrum, it makes a lot of difference when it comes to their full integration, not only in our community life, in our society, but also when it comes to employment. And this is one of the biggest hurdles that we are finding on a daily basis, the issue of linking employment and understanding the environment that we need to provide for persons on the autistic spectrum. But last week we also, and I was mentioning this to Aurélie, a perfect example when it comes to fully integrating and not doing something just for the sake of doing something or for the sake of promoting a good ecosystem, let's put it like that. Last week in the European Parliament, we hosted Pizza Out, which is, for me, one of the best examples that I have seen, whereby youths, and not only youths, but persons on the autistic spectrum are fully integrated. They are practically running a whole enterprise by themselves. And ultimately, if you create this environment, if you have persons who are well-trained to kickstart this project, you can achieve wonderful results. We were speaking with the founder of Pizza Out, and it was remarkable that one of the chefs who was also on the autistic spectrum competed in one of the biggest international competitions of pizza makers. And he managed to achieve the 35th spot, 35th best chef for pizza when competing, not in a special category for disabled, for autistic persons, but competing on an equal basis with pizza makers all over, not only Italy, but all over Europe. So ultimately, if you provide the right environment, if you provide the right opportunities, we can achieve a lot. And persons with disability, autistic persons, can provide a lot. It's not an issue of charity, because ultimately we always end up in this vicious cycle that we are always trying to make charity with persons with disability, with persons on the autistic spectrum, by providing an opportunity to be able to fill up our quotas. We should stay away from this narrative. It's not an issue of charity. These persons can give us a lot. We can learn a lot from them. And having around 5 million autistic people living in the European Union, I believe that this is still a stigma that we are facing in all of our member states when it comes to fully integrating and doing away with discrimination, not only in employment, but when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to education, when it comes to vocational training, when it comes to employment opportunities, when it comes to equal participation in our society. The legislation is there, but ultimately it comes to enforcement. And I can bring up an example from what happened in one of the hearings that we had last week in the Committee of Petitions, whereby we had an Italian petitioner coming to the European Parliament and speaking directly about the discrimination that persons with disability in Italy are facing on a daily basis. And we are hearing from time to time, practically in each committee of petitions hearing that we're having on a monthly basis, the Commission coming up with the same argumentation that they cannot do anything. Why are we using this narrative when not only all of our member states have signed the United Nations Convention on the Right of Persons with Disability, but the European Union is also a party to the same convention. And ultimately, it's becoming a little bit tedious hearing the Commission coming up always with the same argumentation that it's not its competence to enforce the issue of employment discrimination when it comes to persons with disability, when it comes to persons on the autism spectrum. I think that we have to be much more proactive because it is useless to continue to move forward all of these resolutions, all of this legislation, all of these discussions here in the European Parliament, but we are always cycling in the same vicious cycle. Therefore, I am thrilled today to be here, not only to speak of positive examples. It is very important to speak about positive examples that we are witnessing, that NGOs are pushing forward in our member states, but I think it is really important for us to find solutions to continue to put pressure on the European Commission, because ultimately we as legislators, we as representatives in the institutions, we have to carry a lot of responsibility. Because again, and I close on this point, it is useless to sign all of these conventions, all of these resolutions, to make beautiful videos, to make beautiful testimonials, when we cannot enforce such a simple thing, removing discrimination and giving, not helping, because it's not an issue to help persons with disability, to help persons on the autistic spectrum to find a job. They can easily do it, but to create the right environment to do away with discrimination, to be able to give the same opportunity to persons on the autistic spectrum, to persons with disability, to be full citizens, because ultimately this is one of our fundamental rights as European citizens, as citizens of each and every member state, to be able to find and have the same opportunities when it comes to finding a job. Because a job gives you dignity. It doesn't only give dignity to persons who don't suffer from any disability, but it gives dignity and a purpose in life to autistic persons and persons with disability. So I am thrilled to follow this discussion today and follow the good examples that we can share together during this conference. Thanks, Aurélie. Autism-Europe, it's a privilege to be here today.
Thank you so much for these strong words. And first, I would like to give the floor to Olga from PLOS, who will introduce the Autism-Employability, AFS Employability project.
Okay. Hello, everyone. We are from PLOS, Greece. We are really happy to be here today. Actually, today we have the chance to share with you just a few details and important information regarding AFS, the Employability Twist project, a project that we believed and we still believe a lot. Next slide, please. Actually, it is a project on how to support an autism-friendly work environment. Okay. With all our collaborative partners from Malta, from Lithuania, from Cyprus, and from Brussels, of course, from Belgium, we shared the same aspiration and the same goal. Thank you. On how to create autistic-friendly spaces. But actually, the main idea behind this action was based in the question, can there be open labor market inclusion? Because we do all know the general need of more autism-friendly spaces. That means that we do all know that we need people and places to know, to have a basic knowledge and understanding regarding autism spectrum, so there can be a real attitude change, that can lead to inclusion. And that was the idea that if that actually autism-friendly workspaces can actually open the path to open labor market inclusion. But then there were a lot of questions on what does autism-friendly workspace mean, how can we do it, how can be done. And the main question was, who needs more support? So regarding, next slide, please. Our target groups, we decided that we can at first support companies, employers. And this was our first focus. But then, of course, we could focus on autistic candidates, their families, their supportive environment, and of course, society. So the main pillars of our program, based on an integrated framing and realistic solutions, had to do with training and certification for companies and for autistic candidates as well. One more important aspect had to do with the job profile procedure, the matching procedure, and of course, all the modifications and the adjustments, the support that would be external from a help desk team and internal from the role of Autism Ambassador, and also with actions that always raise awareness.
Hello, I'm Nikos from Blois. I would spare some minutes to talk about the training and all the other things that Olga said. When we say about the employers training, we had three main focus groups. The one was to obtain the employers' basic knowledge on autistic spectrum and the challenges and strengths an autistic individual may face. Also, the advantages of hiring an autistic employee. On the second group was to learn some tips for more effective communication strategies and in order to deal difficulties that may face. And also the changes and modifications that has to do in the workplace environment. When we're talking about changes and modifications, we talk about ergonomic changes in the workplace environment, changes in the job description, and also the role of the Autism Ambassador that we'll discuss in the next slide. As you see, we're talking about internal and external support. Internal support is the Autism Ambassador. It's a new role, a role of a person of an already employee on the company that is being certified. It has to be trained in the basic aspects of autistic spectrum and should be a person of reference with specific responsibilities. He's dealing only with work issues, exclusively with work issues, and he can receive support from the help desk and provide support to the employee. The external support is the help desk. The help desk is a team of experienced social care and healthcare professionals that who they have the supervision of the program. They are addressing a wide range of difficulties, and they can provide support to all parties: company, Autism Ambassador, and employee. Next slide, please. The other pillar was the training of the candidates in order to be trained for the training that was hosted by Prisms in Malta. Again, we separate two main focus groups. One was the organizational, how to search for a job, how to prepare for a job interview, questions that they may be asked, or questions that they are allowed to ask in a job interview, appropriate clothing selection, crisis management, and the social factor, how to become a member of a team and not just an individual who is surrounded by other individuals and not a team member. To know their rights and how to defend themselves. Next one, please. That's how, in order to prepare for the candidates for the trip and the training in Malta, we created the social hub that was created by the people who are involved in that. They were sharing the same aspiration to find a job. They have the time to share experience, thoughts, and fears about what it is to start working. They are preparing for the educational trip. The meetings were once a week. And also a very important motive on that was to promote the transition from education to employment. And the coordinators were acting as facilitators, giving more space to the candidates to express themselves and find their own meaning in what was the idea of what they're doing. All right. In the whole process, we create a CV based on an easy-to-read work profile according to the preference of each candidate, the sensory issues, the dream jobs, and the adjustments that they needed to be done in a workplace environment. Closing, we believe that the AFS project created motivation and inspired autistic adults to take the next step to the transition from a life as an Ethereum student to the adult life of a working individual. Also, the project rose awareness to the community, employers, employees, etc., about autism and neurodiversity by debunking myths and misconceptions regarding the abilities and the difficulties of autistic people. Integration to society can be achieved through integration to work, and it's a dynamic process. And all of us, professionals in the field, families and communities, should be open to change, to understand the wishes and recognize the needs of people who have been excluded by society itself until now. And finally, a very nice photo of us from the trip in Malta. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olga and Nikos. And now I will give the floor to Jessica from CRPD Malta. And the idea is really to get these practices out. So we have drafted recommendations that Jessica will present now.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and attendees. My name is Jessica, and I'm representing the Commission for Rights of Persons with Disability in Malta. Next slide. Throughout the duration of this project, CRPD was responsible for drafting up the policy recommendation for autistic individuals and employment at both a European and national level. Today, I will be explaining a bit in small detail the content of the policy recommendation and also the list of different types of recommendations which we have emerged with the feedback of implementing partners who did the project activities in Malta, Lithuania, and Greece. Next slide. So as an introduction, so the content of the policy recommendation. So in the policy recommendation, one can find different types of legislation and policies found in Malta, Lithuania, and Greece. We then have a small section on statistics when it comes to autistic persons in employment and not in employment. We then have a section on the barriers that autistic people face when accessing and retaining employment, and also feedback which the implementing partners have given us throughout on activities that they have done throughout the project. And then lastly, we then have the list of recommendations which are addressed at employers, national authorities, and policymakers at European level. So to start off, I'm just going to give a bit of statistics. According to the most recent EU Labour Force survey, the overall employment rate in the EU is at 73.1%, where the disability employment gap sits at 23.1%, meaning that only half of persons with disability in the EU are in employment. According to a survey carried out by Oticon, which is an international company which aims to create a neurodiversity work environment, which provides integration and technology solutions that benefit autistic individuals, found that globally there is a large autistic employment gap, and it is estimated that less than 22% of autistic people are in meaningful employment, which aligns with their educational achievements. Barriers which autistic people face in the employment, there is a variety of different barriers. However, a report which was done by Autism-Europe on good practices in employment for autistic people from across Europe identified that some of the barriers which autistic individuals face are lack of access to all levels of education and vocational training, lack of support from transition to adult life, barriers during the recruitment process, such as completing a job application, understanding the interview process, and also discrimination in relation to employment. Some of the feedback which we have gathered from the implementing partners who done the activities in the project, when it comes to the activities tied to the training of employers, some of the employers who participated in this training were concerned that they did not have the necessary skills to support an autistic employee at the workplace. Therefore, the partners actually saw how they can provide more concurrent examples so that employers can actually feel comfortable to employ an autistic individual. Partners need to ensure that the training material was adapted according to the knowledge of the employers being trained, as there were some employers who had no prior experience of autism or employing persons with autism. So obviously we had to ensure that all the training material was accessible for them. When it comes to the training of autistic individuals, so another activity, the training obviously had to be adapted according to the individual's needs, and the material should be in easy to read format so that the individual can understand the content coming out of the training. However, some participants who participated in this training showed enthusiasm and excitement to form part of this training, as they felt that they were in a community and felt accepted. However, some also experienced anxiety, especially when it came to transitioning from education to work. So that was something which the partners had to work on. Next slide. When it comes to the social hub, so there was a lot of positive experiences which came out of the social hub, as the participants showed a lot of enthusiasm and interest because, again, they felt part of a community. The partners needed to adapt certain activities so that the participants could perform the task. And they also needed to encourage and prompt some of the individuals to step out of their comfort zone and also meet new people or to start a new activity. The final project activity was that of the job support. Partners expressed how difficult it was to find a job placement for the autistic individual, especially in the areas they were interested that would match their skills and requirements. The partners, however, provided support to some of the autistic individuals who are facing some difficulties in socializing and communicating with their colleagues at the place of work. Next slide. Now I will be going on to the recommendations. So the recommendations list, which addresses employers, national authorities, policymakers at European level. It is very important to outline and note that the 3 countries which have been analyzed are Malta, Lithuania, and Greece. It has been shown that the 3 countries have achieved different progress with regards to the employment of autistic persons. This means that some of the following recommendations may not apply to all the 3 countries, as some of the measures being recommended may have already been implemented. The recommendations in the policy recommendation are also tied to the feedback which we have gathered from the implementing partners and also the barriers which they faced when implementing the project results. Next slide. Some of the recommendations to employers are that we need to take steps to identify the needs of potential autistic workers, whilst always asking the candidates what are their support requirements. The employers need to make sure that instructions are concise and specific for each task from start to finish so that the participant can do what is required from them. Employers should incorporate the idea of an autism ambassador and a buddy system for the autistic employee so that if they would require anything, they would have a contact reference whom they can turn to. Employers should provide reasonable adjustment and accommodations to autistic people according to their needs, though one must also keep in mind that there's a no one-size-fits-all approach for autistic persons. Therefore, particular accommodation for someone might not be helpful for another. Next slide. Some of the recommendations tied to national authorities. National authorities should work closely with stakeholders, NGOs, working disability sectors, autistic people and their families, so that they ensure that work environments are adapted according to the needs of the autistic person. The work towards strengthening national legislation and strategies for autism, and for this, autistic individuals should be involved in all the stages when it comes to drafting of national legislations. National authorities should offer guidance, financial incentives, and job coaches to assist communication and guidance between the employer and the autistic employee. There should be incentives so that the companies can retain an autistic persons, and also the utilization of a toolkit which consists of information about autism with a list of general minor adjustments needed in the workplace so that obviously the employers would be able to know what they need to do. And this should be disseminated to human resources within companies. Next slide. And finally, the recommendations for policymakers at European level. All measures implemented by European institutions should uphold autistic people's rights to access the open labour market, the right to access to reasonable accommodation, the right to non-discrimination in the workplace and the selection processes, as well as the right to access support and training and education programs. European policymakers should ensure that their own institutions are a welcoming space that encourages autistic applicants and employees. The human resource departments of European institutions should receive adequate and updated training on autism at large. Improve and add further accessibility legislation on adjustments which can help an autistic individual, such as adding a quiet room, color schemes, specific lighting, social stories, etc. And also, we should urge member states to fully comply with Employment Equality Directive, Council Directive 2070/80/C, and to ensure that measures such as a positive action recruitment programs and quotas lead to tangible employment opportunities that foster an inclusive workplace. To final off, in the coming weeks, these recommendations will be passed on and disseminated to different stakeholders found nationally, at European level and international, and we hope that the work done throughout this project will better the lives of autistic people in the workplace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And now to conclude our panel on AFS Employability, I would like to give the floor to Ieva and Othline from Lithuania, from GDC, and they will share their experience and testimonies from the project. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, my name is Ieva.
And my name is Aušrinė. We are from Lithuania, from the beautiful and green city, Panevėžys.
Next slide. Could you please pronounce the name of our city? Panevėžys. One more time. Panevėžys. Perfect.
We are social workers from JDC. JDC is the social service institution that provides the activities for young people with disabilities, including those with autism spectrum.
Every day, 70 young people attend GDC. We offer different activities like small work tasks, drama, art, ceramic, sports, IT, and informal education.
However, we lack the tools for our adults to be completely independent and live equal lives.
Especially having proper jobs.
Finding jobs for people with disabilities is a significant issue in Lithuania.
Yes, employers are afraid to take responsibility, workplaces are not adapted, lack of self-confidence among people with disabilities, and insufficient support for a person with special needs.
So why was the Autism Friendly Spaces project so relevant for us in the beginning?
And why do we have such a good result today at the end of the project?
Because the project was focused on an important target group, people with autism spectrum.
Yes, project fully addressed the needs of people with autism spectrum and engaged employers from different companies interested in adapting workplaces and employing individuals with autism spectrum.
The project involved a successful international training course in Greece for employers, offering practical knowledge about autism spectrum and providing support during the employment process.
Yes, the training inspired employers to overcome their fears.
Another very important activity was training in Malta.
Yes, the training inspires individuals with autism spectrum to take action and work hard toward their goals.
It's very important that a social hub was established where all target groups could come together.
Yes, the social hub consists of 5 potential employers representing 5 different companies like cafeteria, pharmacy, car workshop, pizzeria, and family hotel. 5 individuals with autism spectrum, and 2 autism ambassadors who were also trained during the project.
This facilitates Sandra, a person with autism spectrum, meeting an employee and receiving a job offer.
Sandra accepted the job offer and she is still employed at a small family hotel. Let's see Sandra at her workplace.
Before the project, I couldn't find a way to be a part of society. I struggled to discover my interests. I often felt bored. During the project, I participated in the social hub. I attended the international training in Malta. I gained a sense of importance. I connected with employers who recognized my strengths. I received a job offer. I got the job. Today, I am employed and find joy in my work. I am appreciated by my employer. I have established positive relationships with my colleagues. I recognize my strengths and feel confident.
Pasaulyje tikrai nei kiek neatsilieka nuo 100% darbingų žmonių ir kai kuriais atvejais netgi juos lenkia. Labai patinka šitą.
Sandra became more self-confident, her social and financial situation improved significantly.
The Autism Friendly Spaces project and its ideas inspired the social workshop at GDC starting on February 1st. In the first workshop, it's our first workshop in our region, where individuals with autism spectrum will have work, will get salary, and will prepare for the open labor market.
Sandra and her success story, is just the beginning of the more significant changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and such an optimistic message to share today. And well, I think we will have time for questions, or maybe a little bit at the end of the event. But now we will proceed with another very important dimension that is a recognition of the skills of autistic people and the skill validation process. So without any delay, I would like to welcome Luca from Talenti Latenti, who will present the objective of the project. And thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the presentation of Talenti Latenti project. Let me introduce myself. I'm Luca Monti, and I've been involved in certifying skills for over 10 years. And my organization, CQF, is a technical partner of this project and aims to promote and develop validation and certification as a key tool for employment policies. Here there are our partners. Many partners are technical partners, and the second line are external associated partner of the project. And what is the idea? Next slide. When we talk about inclusion and integration, the term refers to a difference that fits within a set of variations. In the context of disability, the difference is primarily focused on an absence. However, to be a part of a community, whatever, the awareness of difficulties must be balanced with the measure and evidence of one's capabilities. Talenti Latenti aims to make those hidden elements that enable participation evident, conscious, and certain. Work, the primary area of social participation, is based on skills. The job market exchanges skills that generate value with compensation, job position, and professional identity. The project aims to merge the need to enter the workplace with a tool that can highlight the talents neurodivergent individual possesses. The service not only boosts their self-esteem and confidence, but is a key to assessing the labor market through job placement services. In this journey of exploration and experimentation, we have realized that national system and the European framework are continually evolving positively, but are not yet mature for such a significant and challenging endeavor. Many formal aspects cannot be completed even today. There is an undeniable many differences among states and within territorial areas. For example, in Italy, what can be done in Lombardy may not be feasible in Sicily. Next, there is a need. Neurodivergent individuals can actively participate, achieve economic independence, and enhance their professional situation only if appropriate services are developed. This includes training qualification professionals and allocating resources for education, training, validation, and employment. There are many contact points between these two projects. Talenti Latenti highlights the necessity of having common tools to overcome delays, emphasizing the best practices. For instance, having a repertoire and European analysis and evaluation validation standard is a common European goal. We have realized that there is not widespread awareness of how important validation services are for all vulnerable segments of society. It's not just a cost, but an investment that generates value over time and reduce future social costs and expenses. People on autism spectrum with a diagnosis are on the rise. We also remember on education that many neurodivergent individuals with disability may not have completed formal education. Full certification of skills can recognize their level according to the EQF, allowing them to continue the higher educational levels. In the third sector, we have observed valuable entities that provide support services for individuals and their families during critical moments. Attention must be paid to these human resources because the initiative we have tested requires a competent, trained, and motivated workforce distributed under the territory with high professionalism recognized by public employment services and by the business entities. The European Social Fund, Next Generation EU and SURE programs are important sources of support for the activities. It's crucial to use these resources wisely to boost the adoption of personalized services by European Union member states. The services must be various in duration and features. Now, job platforms are important players in the labor market, relaying the exchange of accurate and verified information. Digital tools can help resize and rationalize the vast amount of information in technical documents, directories, and procedures, make it easier for operators to focus on individuals and their needs. We have also initiated an in-depth examination of how to support tutors in these regards. Next. Operators training is crucial, as is the alliance with families. Collaboration with families proves really important in the experiments where calendars, timelines, and deadlines were set in alliance with them. Trust and support were guaranteed only when there was committed and participative collaboration. In our test, we found that getting validation and certification take a long time. In the gospel parable of talents, those who have fewer talents are overwhelmed by fear and hide them instead of putting them in use. This is the mistake resulting in condemnation. Talenti Latenti is the challenge to bring the light what would otherwise remain invisible. Validation is also not always sufficient. Validation is not a service can stand alone. It's a part of journey and relies on other essential tools. In experimentation, for example, in the case of AB, we discovered that the processes skills are insufficient for demanding job market open the doors to further training, internship, and support. Customized and well-funded courses are needed in these cases. Talenti Latenti tell us that there is a great need and enormous potential. However, a project of this scale can only be a seed demonstrating the possibility. It needs fertile ground, and we are confident, as we have seen, that it exists. The seed needs nourishment, care, and distribution to bear fruit. It's crucial that good practices become widespread services accessible to everyone, not just a few. The goal of work, autonomy, and personal fulfillment should be attainable for neurodivergent individuals as well. That's why validation plays a central role. This is why there needs to be a push from here, the decision-making center of Europe, and subsequently in the decision-making center of countries. Next. Here there are an explanation of skills validation. Skills validation enabled the employability of neurodivergent individuals, as we have seen in the project. Next one. It's most important to use non-cognitive skills. And the problem in this moment is that the repertories has not the description of non-cognitive skills. This is an example in the repertories of Italy and of Spain. We have to develop this research on the non-cognitive skills. Next one. These are the process of validating. Next one. Yes, we have the case of Andrea. Andrea is the first experiment on skills validation. Next. Okay, now I will show you the picture of Andrea, who has undergone the lengthy process of validating his own skills. Despite processing these technical skills, the expected level of proficiency in a competitive professional context, is a video maker of cartoons, as you can see, is not adequate. The assessment reveals specific training needs that require targeted education and support. Recommendation and suggestion regarding integration can also arise concerning soft skills. Therefore, the advice is to have suitable and flexible services. Andrea has not been employed for 10 years and he is 30 years old. Next one. In the validation and certification project defined over the past 10 years, fully compliant with the European standards as confirmed by CEDEFOP in the latest reports and guidelines of 223, the main critical element after funding is represented by the repertories, diverse, inadequate, lacking in soft skills, complex and detailed. However, there is one element where we can take action to drastically reduce time and cost. We have set up a platform that, with the help of an artificial intelligence tools, guides and identify competency elements and other identification that constitute the candidates' profiles to be submitted to the neurocultural mediator, the professional skills we described in the project, is the support figure for the validation service, but also for training, or support and post-placement assistance over time. This is a scheme of this artificial intelligence. Next one, and the last one. The tool is available to recipients on Talenta project platform, is the QR code. That's all I could tell you in these 10 intense and precious minutes. Thank you for your attention. This is the QR code. If you need to contact us for the newsletter and for applying to the platform. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luca, for this brief overview. Indeed, it's a complex topic, and now I will give the floor to Sylvia from Plenia Inclusion, and maybe she'll also illustrate some dimension more concretely. Thank you.
Thank you, Aurélie. Thank you very much for your presentation. And thank you, Luca, for inviting Plena Inclusion to participate in this European project. Next one, please. Well, I work in Plena Inclusion. We are an umbrella organization working with, well, there you have the numbers, but we are representing more than 900 organizations all over Spain. And we have been working, well, this year is our 60th birthday. So we have some experience working with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families all over the country. Next one, please. Well, some of the barriers that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities face when they are looking for employment, training, or even in these skill validation processes. You have been talking about them during the session, but they have problems to access training because the training is not accessible. There are some barriers around attitudes, the attitudes that society has about people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There are lack of reasonable accommodations, lack of information, which is one of the issues that you were addressing in your project, and communication as well. So these are some of the barriers that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities face when they try to get a job, training. Next one, please. Well, those were the barriers, and these are some of the good things, no? The benefits of implementing skill validation processes adapted for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Those processes allows people to identify their skills, allows them to highlight their professional skills, their competences, and provide more complete information about their working profile. For many people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, we find that they have very little opportunities, and they have very little opportunities in their lives. So they don't have the chance to experiment, they don't have the chance to learn, and many times they don't know what their talents are, because they didn't have the chance to show the talents or to experiment. So these processes are very good for identifying their skills. Another benefit of going through a skill validation process is that, during the process, people will need reasonable accommodations. and adjustments. So this is something that they will learn about themselves, and they can take this learning to the job environment. So if they are aware that they need certain accommodations, they will be able to communicate that to their employer, and it will be easier the inclusion in the labor market, because sometimes we don't even know what we need to, they might not even know what they need to perform the job. So in this process, they will learn what the reasonable accommodations that are better for them. Next one, please. Obviously, one of the benefits of the skill validation process is the access to job opportunities, because to have a training that is certified to have accredited your competences will open the doors to many more job opportunities. So this is very important, obviously. The accreditation process also opens the door to professional development. So this is something that you will be growing up. So this is something interesting as well. And obviously it improves self-confidence and self-esteem because, as I said before, in many times they don't have the opportunities to show their talents and to show their skills. And this process is an opportunity to do so. Next one, please. Obviously, skill validation and employment promotes social inclusion and active participation, and fights stigma, because if you go through this process and you have some competences accredited, the employers or the society in general will look at you in a different way, because there will be something that says, okay, I am able to do these things, and I have these talents, and there is something that recognizes that I have these talents and that I have these skills. So this will contribute to change society perception. Next one, please. We have find out that it is, well, Luca was saying that before, that in order to go through a skill validation process, it's very important to have the support of the families, because the families can help to find information about the talents of the person, the skills of the person. They will be able to provide emotional support, because as Luca was saying before, the process might take time, and the family, if the family is there, it will be better. And well, and they are also very good by searching for the help of professionals that can provide support. So next one, please. What we have been doing in the project in Spain is that we started by doing 2 focus groups with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to find out well, what they think about evaluation processes, how they felt better when they were evaluated, and they provided some good examples of how which reasonable accommodations were better for each of them. We also developed an experimentation of a skill validation process with 10 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and we have write down a report with the learnings. We also provided training for 30 professionals working in the organizations that belong to Plena Inclusión. That was very important because in Spain, the skill validation process for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities is something that is not happening. So we believe that if we train the professionals from our organizations, we will start to raise awareness about these processes, and we will be able to make changes. We know that it's a challenge because right now the process is not accessible. So we will need, our next step will be to make the process accessible, to talk to the ministry, to train evaluators, assessors. We know there is a lot of work to do, but first we have to start training our professionals in order to start the movement. We also develop a video for families to raise awareness about what is a skill validation process, because many times they don't know what is this. And well, we also did an easy-to-read manual for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities about what a skill validation is. And we did that in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. Next one, please. So one of the things that we found out in our work is that it's very important to have the mediator role. And we believe that this mediator role should be someone from the organizations working directly with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because they know the person, they know the support they need, and they can be like a translator or an interpreter, a mediator between the person and the administration. So in the presentation, I am writing down some of the roles, some of the actions that the mediator could provide. And I mean, you have the presentation, so it's very important to establish trust, offer information about the competency accreditation process, conduct a pre-self assessment. So once, so the mediator has all the information about the skills and the talents of the person, and then he can show this information to the assessors and afterwards to the evaluators. Next one, please. Also, the mediator, in order to know the person, he should be exploring the interest, and also examine the work, the training, and the volunteering experiences, which is another way of getting to know the person. Also to seek external feedback with families, with friends, with anyone that can provide information about the talents of the person. Next one, please. Also observation at the workplace, if the person is working, perform competency test if the person is working, or if the person is doing any kind of work placement, so they can observe the talents and the skills of the person, and promote autonomy and decision making. And I think the next one, but I think that's, can you go to the next one, please? And that's it. So those are some of the things that the mediator can do and should be doing to promote the skill validation process. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sylvia, for this insight. And now I would like to give the floor to my colleague Etsane, who will present some of the tools that you can use, notably to discover more about the topic.
Yes, thank you, Aurélie. So I'm Etsane Scott from Autism-Europe, and I just wanted to briefly present the work that we have been doing for Talenti Latenti, providing information to people with disabilities and also their families on how they can support them in this process, because as Sylvia said, sometimes the families don't know where to start with this process. It's a bit complex. There are several steps, and sometimes it can be quite difficult to understand. And as the host of our event said right at the beginning, it is about making the right environment for them to thrive and for their talents to be able to be used in the labour market, which is the most important thing. So I'll very briefly introduce some of the work that is included in the training. All of this information is available on the website of the project, but just to give you a brief idea, for example, the first stage of skills validation is just simply knowing what the skills are and how they can be used. So just understanding what the person is interested in is important. So a good way to support a family member or for an autistic person to start the process is to list the different skills and areas of interest, and of course contact local education and employment centres for more information. There are also online tools with lists of different skills if the person maybe doesn't know where to start. And as Sylvia highlighted, it's also important to contact local disability organizations, which are always going to be there to help the person to see what their employment prospects are and what they want to do. So once the process has started, there's a little bit more paperwork involved. So for the documentation phase, this really depends on the country, but you might have to provide a CV or a summary or a work sample. And there are online tools like Europass, which is included on the slide here, that can be used to create a CV and also to test digital skills, for example. Again, usually it depends on the country, but the education center or the employment center will provide the different steps, and there is usually a reference person there to provide the information of what has to be done. So of course, it's important to keep track of all of this, which sometimes it can get a little bit overwhelming. So for the third stage, which is the assessment, it depends on the job that the person wants to validate. It depends on the skills that the person wants to validate, because sometimes the skills can lead to a full diploma. Sometimes it can be a partial diploma. But in any case, it is important to read up on how this test is going to take place. If it's a test, sometimes it might be an interview, but you can find online material online, for example, on Employment Autism website on tips for interviews and also for exams. So this is another way that autistic people can be supported through this process, is to practice the interview or practice the test, for example, which is always important to have that clear idea of what the exact steps are going to be. And then if all of this has been successful, then the process will be completed in the form of the validation. So this person might obtain a diploma. And as both Luca and Silvia explained, this is truly valuable for people with disabilities, because maybe for different reasons, they might not have been able to complete formal education. So this is a way for them to actually validate these skills that they have achieved, whether that is in volunteering activities, whether that is outside of formal education, where it really, really depends. So again, it's important to have that individual assessment, but it is key, because autistic people and people with other disabilities have incredible talents that can only add to an inclusive workplace. So this is an interesting avenue to do this. If you want to find out more about our project, go to talentaproject.eu, and you'll find all of the materials that the partners of this project have developed. You can, of course, there are a lot of other materials online, and at European level, CEDEFOP can be a good introductory website for information. And as Luca explained, our project is going to be developing an online tool soon, and of course you can sign up to see what the updates are going to be on that. I think with this we're closing the presentations for today. Maybe we'll have a little bit of time for the Q&A now, and I invite all attendees to provide feedback about this event. So you can scan the QR code, but I'll hand the word back to Aurélie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Etsane. So indeed, now we have still a little bit of time. If there is any question you would like to address to our panelists today, suggestion, feedback, all comments are welcome. So the floor is yours. I think it was probably clear. So it's great to see. I would like to thank you very much for your attendance today. As you can see, access to employment has many, many dimensions, and we've tried to address some of them today. We hope you found it interesting. You will find all the materials on the respective project websites. We're always happy to also address any queries you may have and continue exchanging on the topic with all of you. So thank you again, and congratulations to all partners for the great works. And I would like to thank also the team of Autism-Europe for their work to put up this event today and to organize it. So thank you very much to all of you.